The suspension of commercial flights from Niger Republic to Nigeria and from Nigeria to its northern neighboring country has been renewed by the federal government. The move is in compliance with a resolution by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, put forth the resolution, in response to the events in Niger on July 26, 2023, when the democratically elected president Mohamed Bazoum was ousted in a coup and replaced by the military junta led by General Abdurrahmani Chiani. This directive was contained in a letter titled ECOWAS Restriction on the Republic of Nigeria from the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, Aeronautical Information Services, dated February 2, 2024, and signed by the Director of Air Traffic Service, Tayo John, on behalf of the agency's Managing Director and Chief Executive. Let's explore this conversation with the help of a public affairs analyst, Jide Ojo. Thank you very much, Jide, for giving us your time. Please help us put this in context. How expansive is ECOWAS resolution on Niger? Does this move indicate the beginnings of the feared escalation of the crisis?
Felicity, you are spot on. Definitely, this shows that the Cold War between Niger Republic and Nigeria is yet to be over. And where two elephants fight, the grass is always the one to suffer. Recall that about last week, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger actually said they are also leaving ECOWAS. So I understand that under this kind of arrangement, when these three countries said they are no longer a member of ECOWAS, Nigeria cannot unilaterally decide to go and lift this flight embargo. And what the implication of that is very grave. It then shows that Nigerians and those flights that ordinarily should go through Niamey or Bamako or Ouagadougou will have to find a detour. And that will take longer hours, because if these countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger Republic, go on retaliatory move and said that their airspace is also short to flights coming in through Europe or from Africa to Europe, it then means that those flights, commercial flights as they were, will have to find alternate routes. And that means passengers on these routes will pay a lot more than they would have paid if the airspace wasn't closed. To me, what this signpost is the need to urgently resolve this impasse. This is having very negative impact on not only diplomatic relationship, but also economic and trade relationship between Nigeria and Niger Republic. We've lost so many billions of dollars in terms of trade, and that tell you that ECOWAS need to actually have another look at its policy, because these hunters in these three countries of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are not ready to back down. They have already told you that they are no longer a member of ECOWAS, even though the protocol said they have to give 1 year notice. And under this kind of intransigence, you now have a scenario that innocent citizens of these countries are being made to suffer untold hardship. And there's a huge economic loss on the part of both Niger Republic and Nigeria.
Okay. How long do you think this suspension will last, considering there doesn't seem to be an improvement in the domestic political situation in Niger Republic?
I wish I knew how long it will last. You are trying to make me Nostradamus, the man who knows tomorrow. I do not know tomorrow. I'm not a prophet, I'm not a seer. And already this is taking longer than expected to resolve. But what should not be given up on is issue of diplomacy, dialogue, advocacy. Because even as of last week, when these three countries of Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali decides to leave ECOWAS, many expressed concern about the impact that this will have on insecurity in northern Nigeria and in the country of Nigeria as a whole. Because these three countries happens to be a buffer between the Sahel region and then the West African sub-region. And when you don't have cooperation, already Niger Republic has even asked France to leave their country, including closing down its diplomatic the embassy in Niamey. That means that, and there are worries that Niger Republic seems to have found a new ally in Russia, just like Burkina Faso, just like Mali.
Let me interject. Something you said about having a new relationship with Russia. What worries you, or what are your fears in that regard? That this disagreement and this crisis will open the road for these foreign bodies who have been looking for inroads into these African countries to reestablish themselves and thwart whatever efforts might have been made towards growth in the last decade?
You know, Felicity, that Russia did not colonize any African country, the entire 54 African countries. But it will seem like with the frosty relationship between France and its former colonies, whom we call Francophone countries, Russia is waiting in the wings to cash in on that frosty relationship to establish rapport with these countries, and that is of concern to US in particular, given the Cold War that still exists between the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc. And of course, you saw the war between Ukraine and Russia, where the whole essence of why America and Europe is investing billions of dollars in the war in Ukraine is to forestall Russia's expansionism agenda. And while that war is raging, Russia is already in Africa looking for where they can perch, or where with time they want to have a kind of neo-colonialism. And remember, the Wagner Group has been working as mercenaries for many African countries that are in conflict. And we know what the costly relationship between the Wagner Group and the Russian government, although the leader of the Wagner Group eventually overreached himself and was taken out. But what all of this portends for Africa is that we are still largely dependent on whether the Western Bloc or Eastern Bloc.
And definitely this internal wrangling and this crisis does not help our cause in any way. I guess we'll have to leave it there. Sorry to interrupt.
It does not. Yeah. It does not. It does not. Because what we need in Africa is a united front to confront our common enemy. Unfortunately, that unity is taking longer to reach than
I hope we get there sooner than later, before the crisis overwhelms us. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
My pleasure, Felicity. Have a great week ahead.
You too.